Hello, welcome back to another tutorial from PH Studios. This is from the Advanced Techniques series. If you're still here from the last tutorial, I applaud you. That was probably one of the worst tutorials so far. I was not looking forward to doing that, and it was probably way too long, but hopefully you got something out of that tutorial. And this tutorial will make up for it by only being 5 to 10 minutes long. So let's go ahead and get started. In this tutorial, we are going to do randomize sprites. We're just going to randomize which sprites will be drawn in place of another. True ships, draw one sometimes and draw one other times. So we're going to need two textures. In order to do that, we need to go to the XNA Complete Games 2 Space Shooter. If you go to the main website, www.phstudios.com, go to the XNA Complete Games 2 Space Shooter link on the right side, and we get to the sprites zip file. Download that to your computer and unzip it. You can pause the video and do that however you want. So now once you have the sprites unzipped, we have the bullet, enemy, and player. We're just going to focus on the enemy and the player. So first, let's look at our randomized sprites, the final version of it. And let's run the complete sample. See, we have the enemy, then we have the ship, then we have the enemy, we have the ship, enemy, ship, and it is actually randomizing. It's just only two sprites. It can't really do much. There was three enemies, one player, two players, an enemy. So it is randomizing, but you just don't see that for just two images. So let's create a new project. It's a XNA Game Studio 3.1, Windows Game 3.1. Let's go to Randomize Sprites. And go to those sprites you just unzipped. Gotta be the player and enemy. And drag them into the content portion of our project. Okay, so now we're just going to do the very basic way of displaying sprites. We're not going to use a gameplay object, class, or anything like that. So texture 2D. We're going to have the texture sprite 1, sprite 2. Now we're gonna load both these sprites into memory, but the texture is what is currently being used. Now it's a good idea to load as many textures as you want into memory. Like if you're randomizing sprites, you want to load the sprites you're going to randomize into memory. That way you don't randomize a sprite by going to the hard drive, grabbing the texture. Alright, it's time to randomize again. Let's go to the hard drive, grab this texture. Go to the hard drive again, let's grab this texture, because that's very slow. Memory is a lot faster than the hard drive, so therefore you just wanted to load in the enemy and player PNG right away. Now of course, if you have 6,000 textures you do not want to load every single texture into memory. There's some point in your game project where you just say, we can load these few textures, but not these, and then we have new levels, so we can load these textures but not leave those out of there, and so on. So depending on how much memory you want to have for a requirement, and if the Xbox 360 is a concern, you want to keep in mind on how much textures you load right away and how much you can load during gameplay. Since we're just doing two, we can load it into memory right away. So let's finish up with the fields before we get into the constructor and initialize and all the other methods. Vector 2, the position of our texture. Okay, now we need a velocity as well. Now we need time, span, delay, timer. This is just going to hold our how long until we delay in order to generate a new texture and make it fly past the screen. Float max time is equal to 2.0 f. How much we want to delay the timer by. Now we need a random, and you can name it whatever you want. I just like to call it rand. And there we go. Now the game one, we can leave it alone. Initialize rand is equal to new random, opening and closing parentheses. We don't care about the seed because, well, we're not really concerned about the random value here. We just want to get some random out of it. Now position is equal to new vector 2, 0 as the x. We do not, for the initial position, we do not want to have any, we just want it 0 on the x. Float. Now for the y, we want it to be randomized, as you saw in the completed sample. Sometimes it's towards the middle, sometimes it's towards the bottom, sometimes it's towards the top. So that is randomizing the y position. And we do that by having rand.next double, and that's between 0 and 1. So we need to do some things here. Times graphics device dot viewport dot height, close, semicolon. Okay. So we cast it as a float because this is a double and we multiply it by a integer. Now, next double is between 0 and 1. So we can't just say 0 and 1 as the y position. No, we want it to randomize from the very top of the game window to the very bottom of the game window. So we multiply it by the height. If the next double is 0, the y becomes 0. If the next double is 1, the position of the y is the height of the game window. And it will randomize anywhere in between. So now velocity is equal to new vector 2. We do not want x2, or we do want x to update, and we do not want y to update. Now delay timer is equal to time span dot from seconds max time. Okay, so now load content. S1 is equal to content dot load. It's a texture 2D, and this sprite, or the asset name, is just play. Copy this line, paste it below, change S1 to S2, change the player string to enemy, and there we have it. One final thing we need to do for load content is generate random sprite. Now this method has been created, but after we do opening and closing parentheses, it'll allow us to generate the method stub. Delete the throw new exception, and let's do the code for this first. Int r is equal to rand.next. And we need to pass it some amount, so 0, 100. It can be 1,000, it can be 100,000, whatever you want. It can be negative 100 to 100. It's totally up to you, but 0 to 100 is perfectly fine for this sample. Now, if r modulus, which is shift 5,